President Biden standing down in a major moment in American political history. With the president ending his re-election bid, a look at what this means for the nation and the race for the White House. The reaction pouring in from across the political spectrum, including right here in the DMV, a look at how we got here. Plus, the president endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. Will the Democratic Party get behind her as well? The path forward and the state of the race.
7 News on your side at 11 starts now.
And we begin tonight with continuing coverage of the story that has sent shockwaves through Washington. President Biden ending his campaign for another 4 years in office. I'm Carl Willis. Thank you for joining us. Now, the president making that announcement today by posting a statement on X in which he outlined the achievements of his administration before going on to write that it has been the greatest honor of his life to serve as president, and that while it has been his intention to seek re-election, believes it's in the best interest of his party and the country to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling his duties as president for the remainder of his term. Now, this development coming as the president recovers from a case of COVID-19 at his Delaware beach house. The president saying that he will address the nation later this week, likely after he fully recovers from his illness. Now, in his statement, the president offers his endorsement to Vice President Kamala Harris. This as questions mount over who will succeed him as the Democratic nominee for president. In another statement posted online, Biden writes, quote, "My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this," end quote. And following the president's sudden decision, Vice President Harris releasing a statement thanking Biden for his endorsement. She wrote, "With this selfless and patriotic act, President Biden is doing what he has done throughout his life of service, putting the American people and our country above everything else. I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination." Now, the president was facing an uphill battle in his re-election campaign. As you can see from these poll numbers, a majority of voters wanted Biden to drop out. Roughly 2/3 of voters in one poll. Below that, even newer numbers showed doubt about Biden had grown to 70%. And looking at how voters would react to a potential Harris-Trump matchup, you can see from these numbers that President Biden was trailing former President Trump slightly. But in a Reuters Ipsos poll, Harris is actually running even with the former president. And it should be noted that that poll was taken before the latest twist in the campaign. And it's still unclear if Harris can get the Democratic Party to unite behind her. And it's also unclear how the general electorate will respond to Harris as the presumptive nominee for the party. Now, right here in the district, the president's decision to end his campaign will have an immediate effect. We're getting ready for a big week on Capitol Hill and a visit from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. 7 News' Rebecca Turco is live at the White House tonight. And Rebecca, what kind of response have you seen there tonight?
Well, really, it's been quite the response. There's still a dozen or so people outside the White House as we speak. No more signs like we saw out here earlier. For Democrats we caught up with today, it's been a lot to process. And for Republicans, they're still confident that Donald Trump is going to come out on top. A crowd drawn to the White House after President Biden announced he's dropping out of the race.
And there's so much riding on this election.
So many emotions, from fear to gratitude to frustration.
If you can't run for president, you don't have the ability to be the president.
Signs saying bye alongside ones thanking the president. For the Statums, it's a house divided, politically at least.
He's stepping down, doesn't matter to me. He's going to lose anyway.
It was the right decision, I feel, just because of his health and well-being.
Pastor William Statham has no doubt Donald Trump will win again. His wife, Marie, is worried that'll happen now with Biden out of the picture.
I think it's gonna boost Donald Trump's chances of becoming elected.
She's not alone in feeling that way.
And I understand he's not as sharp as he used to be. But it's very late in the game to be changing horses. And so this is not a move that's without significant risk.
Glenn Boyce is emotional, thinking how difficult a decision it must have been for the president. He's ready to support whoever the Democratic Party backs, hoping they'll make a decision soon, while others feel Biden's not fit to finish out his term.
He should resign and make Kamala the president. I'm not going to vote for her. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'll probably write in a third party.
And at a time when the country can feel so divided, the statums are a reminder that different beliefs can still come together and get along.
We really both believe this is the greatest country in the world. We do.
Still, of course, lots to unpack here, and it's certainly going to be a busy few weeks leading up to the Democratic National Convention. Reporting live from the White House, Rebecca Turco, 7 News.
Rebecca, thank you. And 7 News will have full team coverage of the proceedings on Capitol Hill starting tomorrow morning. Our John Gonzalez will be live at the Capitol. Stay with 7 News for the latest developments and breaking news updates. And we continue with team coverage right now as President Biden officially exits the race for the White House, throwing his support behind Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, now the hard work of unifying the Democratic Party begins. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us live at the White House. And Kayla, how is the Democratic Party reacting to this?
Well, Carl, there appears to be universal praise among Democrats for President Biden making this decision to step aside and not seek re-election. Democrats are calling this a selfless move, saying President Biden is putting his country and his party before himself. And this came after a very intense campaign among those in President Biden's own party to get him to step down, which he eventually did this afternoon, right after making the announcement that he was not going to seek re-election. President Biden endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris. After President Biden made that announcement, dozens of other Democrats got on board. People like Representative Jim Clyburn. He's a longtime Biden ally, saying he now endorses Kamala Harris. We also saw endorsements from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and California's Governor Gavin Newsom, who we did not get direct endorsements from today. Former President Barack Obama, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, and now the party seems to be uniting around Kamala Harris, at least some. Who could be her running mate?
Yeah, it at least appears they're uniting right now, Carl, but we'll have to see what happens in the long run. This is where the Democratic Party was at, though, and this signals how much pressure President Biden was under to step down. Democrats were already looking into who would make a good vice president for Kamala Harris. They were doing this research even before President Biden stepped down. Now, bear with me, but these are some of the names that are on this list. We have Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. They would help shore up the Southern Democrat vote. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who already gave Harris his endorsement, as well as Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Big names on that list. Now, what kind of impact do you anticipate this move having on other important races around the country?
So, Carl, it was these down ballot Democrat races. They were the main reason why Democrats were pushing to have Joe Biden pulled from the top of the ticket, saying he was hurting Democrats' chances to regain control of the House and hold on to their very slim majority in the Senate. It will take some time, though, to see how these down ballot races will play out. Once we get the polling numbers, we'll have a better idea of how today's decision will impact that. But what we are starting to see is this was a massive fundraising day for Democrats. It was actually the largest fundraising day that Democrats have seen in 2024. They raised $46.7 million today. So they're looking for that wind at their back. And Carl, we'll see if they can gain any momentum here.
Yeah, hoping to ride that wave. All right, Kayla, thank you very much. And coming up for us on 7 News at 11, a pivotal moment in political history with the president choosing to end his campaign for re-election. We haven't seen anything like this in more than 50 years. After the break, we speak to a historian to get perspective on this news. Stay with us.
You're watching 7 News, on your side at 11.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore has been a firm supporter of President Biden throughout his presidency and his re-election campaign. He also traveled to the White House last month with other Democratic governors to address concerns surrounding the president's fitness. Mackenzie Frost with Governor Moore's response to President Biden's decision to leave the race for the White House.
Governor Wes Moore out with a lengthy statement this evening thanking President Joe Biden for his service and commitment to the country. The governor talking about working with the president during the last 2 years, rattling off some statistics about job growth and infrastructure investment, and most recently during the Key Bridge collapse, noting that the president rallied with the state of Maryland. Governor Moore going on to say that the president has dedicated his life and career to serving the American people, saying in part, quote, "As a governor, I look to him as an exemplar of true leadership. As an American, I look to him as an embodiment of our shared values of freedom, decency, and patriotism." But notably, the statement did not include an endorsement for Vice President Kamala Harris, who many are believing could be the next Democratic nominee for president. However, I'm told by several sources close to Governor Wes Moore that we could see that endorsement come for Harris as soon as Monday. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, 7 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, tonight is a night that historians will be studying for years. A sitting president has chosen to end his campaign for re-election. And while this has happened before, it has never happened so close to Election Day. So what does this mean for the nation? Gary Nordlinger joins us live. He's a professor at George Washington University's School of Political Management. Gary, Vice President Harris has been endorsed by the president, as we've said, and we've seen many others coming out to endorse her. Do you see this being decided before the DNC in Chicago?
Oh, I really do. I think what I'm most surprised by today is how quickly Harris has been packing up endorsements from, last time I looked, she had over 120 endorsements from senators, governors, members of the House. Several state delegations have already voted to support her at the convention. So unless something dramatically happens, I think she will be the Democratic nominee.
And knowing the history of the 68 Democratic convention in Chicago, is there a chance that we could see that same kind of chaos?
Gee, I hope not. Remember, that was a very different era. You know, you had hippies and yippies and everything else in Chicago there to try to stir up trouble. And you still had, that old salty Mayor Daley in charge of the show, and you had credentials fights at the conventions and everything else. So I don't see this convention shaping up to be nearly as chaotic and disastrous as 68 was for the Democrats.
And we were chatting about this earlier, but what kind of shift will the Trump-Vance campaign have to make now, facing a much different candidate in Harris right now? Possibly.
Right. They're going to have to totally retune their message. They can try to associate Harris with Biden policies, but she is not Joe Biden. She is not an 81-year-old man who had a terrible debate in July. And in all honesty, when you think about it, the Democrats were darn lucky that debate happened in June and not in the middle of October.
Absolutely. So do you see this as a shift away from the baby boomers leading the way, a passing of the torch, perhaps?
It's about
I gotta ask you that.
For the Democrat. Yeah, I am a boomer, and it's about time the Democratic Party gets to younger people. My biggest surprise from the 2020 elections was all 4 of the final Democrats in the battle for the nomination were all in their 70s. And we're a much younger country. So the good news is you have Harris, who's 59 years old. Hopefully she'll, choose a vice presidential candidate that, is also in their 50s.
All right. We will all be watching, Gary.
Big generational change for the Democrats.
It's huge. All right. Gary Nordlinger, George Washington University, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.